The brush trembled in my hand as I added the final strokes to my masterpiece, a haunting self-portrait that had consumed the last 3 months of my life. Something about the eyes seemed to stare right through me, as if they knew what was coming before I did. My name is Isabella, and that morning in my sun-drenched studio was the last time I'd feel truly at peace for a long time. Bella, you need to see this right now! Alexis burst through the door, her heels clicking frantically across the hardwood floor. She thrust her phone in my face, displaying an art gallery's website. What am I looking at? I asked, wiping paint from my hands. The Morton Gallery's upcoming exhibition. Look who's headlining. My heart stopped. There, in elegant typography, was my boyfriend Wade's name. But what made my blood run cold were the preview images, my paintings. Not the ones I'd given him, but pieces I'd never shown anyone. Works I'd kept locked away in my private studio. This has to be a mistake, I whispered, grabbing the phone. But as I scrolled through the images, reality crashed down around me. These were my most intimate pieces, my soul laid bare on canvas. And somehow, they were being presented as Wade's work. When did you give him these? Alexis asked softly. I didn't. My voice cracked. He must have copied them when I was... The realization hit me like a physical blow. All those times he'd insisted on staying at my place while I ran errands. His sudden interest in my private workspace. The way he'd encourage me to take long walks to clear my head while he supposedly worked on his laptop. My phone buzzed. A text from Wade himself. Big news, babe. Got my first solo exhibition. Come celebrate tonight? Alexis grabbed my arm as I swayed. Bella, breathe. We need to think this through. But I was already moving, grabbing my keys and jacket. I need to see him, now. Wait! Alexis called after me. At least let me come with you. I found Wade at his usual cafe, looking infuriatingly calm as he sipped his Americano. His face lit up when he saw me, but faltered at my expression. Congratulations on the exhibition, I said, my voice eerily steady. Tell me, how long did it take you to paint my self-portrait? The color drained from his face. Bella, I can explain. Explain what? How you stole my work? How you've been planning this for months while sleeping in my bed? It's not stealing, he hissed, leaning forward. It's marketing. Your stuff is good, but you have no idea how to sell it. I'm doing you a favor. I laughed, a harsh sound that made nearby patrons turn. A favor? By claiming my work as yours? Who's going to believe you anyway? His smile turned cruel. You're a nobody. I have connections, credentials. By tomorrow, these will be known as Wade Nichols Originals. I stood up slowly, my whole body shaking. We'll see about that. As I walked away, I heard him call out, Don't do anything stupid, Bella. You'll only hurt yourself. But I was already pushing through the door, an invitation to his gallery opening burning a hole in my pocket. He had no idea what I was capable of. Neither did I, but I was about to find out. I spent 3 days in bed, surrounded by crumpled tissues and unanswered calls. The only person I let in was Alexis, who brought coffee and refused to let me wallow. Get up, she commanded, yanking open my curtains. This isn't you, Bella. The woman who painted that fierce self-portrait wouldn't let some sleazy ex destroy her. He didn't just steal my art, I croaked, pulling the blanket over my head. He stole my voice. Those paintings, they were like my diary. Every brushstroke was a secret I never meant to share. Then get angry! Alexis pulled the blanket away. Use that pain. My phone buzzed. Another text from Emma, my mentor. Bella, we need to talk about Wade's exhibition. These pieces seem familiar. I threw the phone across the room. Even Emma's questioning whether I copied him. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm a nobody. Okay, that's it. Alexis grabbed my shoulders. Get dressed. We're going to the gallery. An hour later, we stood outside the Morton Gallery, staring at the promotional posters. My stomach churned, seeing my work with Wade's name beneath it. Wait! I pressed my face against the glass. No, 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 no. What is it? The centerpiece. My voice shook. It's Phoenix Rising, my mother's last portrait before she died. I never showed anyone that painting. It was still in my private studio, hidden behind. The realization hit me. I fumbled for my keys, hands trembling. Bella, what are you doing? My studio. We need to check my studio now. The drive was a blur. When we reached my workspace, I knew before opening the door. The hidden panel behind my supplies had been pried open, the canvas gone. That bastard, Alexis whispered. I sank to my knees, touching the empty space. This was the last thing I painted while Mom was alive. She sat for me every day, even when the chemo made her too weak to hold her head up. She called it her legacy piece. And now it's going to be Wade's masterpiece. Alexis's voice hardened. Unless what? Unless we stop him. She pulled out her phone, showing me an article. Look, the exhibition opens in 2 weeks. That's your mother's painting he's using to make his name. Are you really going to let him take that from you? Something shifted inside me. The despair that had been drowning me transformed into white-hot anger. My phone rang. Leonard, Wade's business partner. I almost declined, but something made me answer. Isabella! He sounded nervous. We need to talk. About Wade. About the paintings. There's something you should know. Save it, I snapped. I know exactly what's happening. No, you don't understand. I can help you. Wade's planning to sell your mother's portrait privately after the opening. Once it's gone, my free hand clenched into a fist. When and where? Tomorrow noon, the cafe on 4th Street. Come alone. I hung up, meeting Alexis's questioning gaze. So? She asked. What are you going to do? I walked to my easel, picking up a brush. The weight felt different now, like a weapon instead of a tool. I'm going to take back what's mine, I said. Every last piece. The cafe buzzed with lunchtime chatter, but Leonard sat alone in a corner booth, fidgeting with his coffee cup. His usual polished appearance was cracked, tie askew, hair disheveled. You have 5 minutes, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. I didn't know at first, he blurted out. Wade said you two had an arrangement, that you were letting him showcase your work under his name for a cut of the profits. And you believed that? Until I saw the portrait. Leonard leaned forward. The woman in the painting. The way she's looking at the artist. No one captures that kind of love unless they're family. A siren wailed outside, making me jump. Through the window, I watched people hurrying past, wondering how many of them had ever been betrayed by someone they trusted. Why are you telling me this now? Because Wade's gone too far. He's planning to sell your mother's portrait to a private collector for $500,000. Once it's gone, it'll disappear into some billionaire's vault. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. $500,000? The buyer's already lined up. Some tech mogul who loves Wade's raw emotional depth. Leonard made air quotes, looking disgusted. I have proof. Emails, contracts, everything. Why should I trust you? Because I'm tired of being part of this. He pulled out his phone, showing me emails between Wade and the buyer. But there's more. Victor Stewart is coming to authenticate the collection tomorrow. My heart stopped. Victor was the city's most respected art critic. His word was gospel in our community. If he validates these as Wade's work, I started. You'll never prove they're yours, Leonard finished. But I have an idea. Before he could continue, the cafe door chimed. Victor himself walked in, his signature red scarf trailing behind him. Leonard, Victor called out. And Isabella, isn't it? Wade's girlfriend? Ex-girlfriend, I corrected, standing quickly. Ah, yes. Shame about that. But his work has never been better. That portrait he's featuring, extraordinary depth of emotion. You really must come to the opening. My nails dug into my palms. Actually, about that portrait. Leonard kicked my shin under the table. Isabella was just leaving. We have that meeting, remember, Victor? I caught Leonard's warning look and swallowed my words. Right. Excuse me. Outside, my phone buzzed with a text from Leonard. Don't expose yourself yet. Meet me tonight at 8. I know how to help you prove everything. Another message popped up, from Harmony, an up-and-coming artist I'd met at previous galleries. Just saw the exhibition preview. We need to talk. It's important. My phone kept buzzing. Alexis, Emma, even Wade. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had questions. I walked to the nearby park, finding a quiet bench. A street artist was setting up nearby, carefully arranging his paintings. He caught me watching and smiled, holding up a brush like a toast. My phone buzzed again. Leonard, bring any proof you have of your work. Sketches, photographs, anything. And Isabella? Be careful who you trust. I looked back at the cafe where Victor and Leonard were deep in conversation. The street artist had started painting, his brush moving with confident strokes. I pulled out the gallery invitation, running my finger over Wade's name. 2 weeks to save my mother's portrait. 2 weeks to reclaim my life's work. 2 weeks to prove who I really was. Harmony's studio was exactly what you'd expect from a rising star. All sleek lines and perfect lighting. She opened the door wearing paint-splattered overalls, her usual confident smile nowhere to be seen. I bought one of Wade's pieces last month, she said without preamble. Except it's not his, is it? I stepped inside, my heart pounding. Which one? She led me to a painting hanging in her workspace. A small, abstract piece I'd created during a particularly dark period after Mom's death. The swirling blacks and deep purples seemed to pulse with grief. I paid $15,000 for this, Harmony said. Maxed out my credit card because it spoke to me. Now I'm seeing the exhibition previews and the style. It's too similar to be coincidence. 15,000? My voice cracked. He sold it for 15,000? It was you, wasn't it? She touched the canvas gently. You're the real artist. Before I could respond, her phone chimed. She glanced at it and frowned. Wade just announced a private viewing tomorrow night. Small group, serious collectors only. He's moving fast, I muttered, trying to sell as much as he can before the main exhibition. I want to help, Harmony said suddenly. This piece, I've never seen pain captured so honestly. He had no right to steal that from you. Why would you help me? We're competitors. We're artists first. What he's doing, it destroys everything we stand for. My phone buzzed. Leonard, where are you? Meeting starts in 30 minutes. I have to go, I said. But Harmony, thank you. Wait! She grabbed my arm. The private viewing tomorrow, I can get you in. My invitation includes a +1. That's too risky. If Wade sees me, he won't. It's a masked event, some pretentious theme he came up with. Nobody would know it's you. I stared at my painting on her wall, remembering the night I created it. Mom had just started hospice care. The brush had been my only anchor to sanity. Okay, I said, but I need you to do something first. I pulled out my phone, showing her photos of my studio, my sketches, my process. I need you to document everything. If this goes wrong, I need someone else to know the truth. Of course, she hesitated. Isabella? There's something else you should know. Emma's going to be at the viewing tomorrow. She's bringing potential buyers. My mentor, the woman who'd believed in me when no one else did. Now she'd be there, watching Wade sell my pain to the highest bidder. Perfect, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. That's exactly what I need. What are you planning? The truth, I said, heading for the door. It's time everyone saw it. Outside, the city lights were coming on, turning everything soft and deceptive. My phone buzzed again. Alexis this time. Where are you? Leonard's waiting. I took one last look at my painting through Harmony's window. Tomorrow, I'd be face to face with my stolen work, my mentor's doubt, and Wade's lies. The mask would hide my face, but nothing could hide what I was about to do. Coming, I texted back. And I know exactly what we need to do. You're insane, Alexis said, watching me pack my supplies. This is absolutely insane. Got a better idea? I carefully wrapped my mother's brushes, the ones she'd given me on my 16th birthday. Because in 48 hours, My life's work becomes Wade's legacy. Leonard paced my studio, his shoes leaving marks on the paint-splattered floor. The private viewing is our best chance. Security will be minimal, all the major players will be there, and everyone will be masked. Including Wade, Alexis pointed out. How can you be sure he won't recognize you? I pulled out the dress I'd bought. Deep burgundy, nothing like my usual style. Because Wade never paid attention to who I really was. He saw what he wanted to see. My phone rang, Emma's name flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, like I had her last dozen calls. She's going to be there tomorrow, Leonard said quietly. Wade's counting on her endorsement to seal the big sales. Good. I laid out the evidence we'd gathered. Photos, sketches, dated receipts for art supplies, even old social media posts showing my works in progress. Let her see the truth with everyone else. Alexis picked up one of the photos. Me working on the portrait of my mother. What if this backfires? What if you lose everything? I already have. I gestured around the empty studio. He took my mother's portrait, her legacy. I can't let him sell it. Leonard's phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read the message. Wade just moved up the sale. He's showing your mother's portrait tonight at the viewing. Private auction, starting bid at $700,000. The brush in my hand clattered to the floor. 700, that's more than all my other pieces combined. Because it's the most powerful, Alexis said. Anyone with eyes can see that. We need to move faster, Leonard said. I'll have the presentation ready, but Isabella, are you sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. I walked to my easel, where a fresh canvas waited. Picking up a brush, I made a single, bold stroke across its surface. Deep red, like blood, like betrayal. When my mother was dying, I said, making another stroke, she told me that art isn't just about creating beauty. It's about truth. Even when that truth hurts. The door chimed. Harmony walked in, carrying a garment bag. Got your mask, and you'll never believe who just arrived at the gallery early. Wade? Leonard asked. Victor Stewart? He's doing a previewing assessment. If he authenticates these as Wade's work before tonight. Then we move now, I said, putting down the brush. Harmony, call Emma. Tell her to meet you at the gallery in an hour. Leonard, is the presentation ready? He nodded, patting his laptop bag. Everything's here. But Isabella, this means confronting them all at once. Wade, Victor, Emma, the buyers. Good. I took the mask from Harmony, a delicate creation of black lace and burgundy feathers. Let them all see who really bleeds on these canvases. Alexis grabbed my hand. I'll be right outside if you need me. I squeezed her hand back, then opened the garment bag. The dress spilled out like liquid fire. Time to show Wade what a nobody can do. The Morton Gallery hummed with expensive perfume and whispered conversations. Through my mask's delicate mesh, I watched Wade work the room, champagne in hand, basking in praise for my pain. He's got Victor cornered by your mother's portrait, Harmony whispered, adjusting her own butterfly mask. They've been discussing technique for 20 minutes. My hands trembled as I watched Victor gesture at the painting, pointing out details only the artist would know. Details I'd wept over, perfected, poured my grief into. Ladies and gentlemen, Wade's voice carried across the room. If I could have your attention? The crowd gathered, a sea of elaborate masks and designer clothes. Emma stood near the front, her signature silver hair unmistakable, even under her peacock feathers. Tonight is special, Wade continued. We're privileged to witness the unveiling of my masterpiece, Phoenix Rising, a tribute to the human spirit's triumph over mortality. My mother's face looked down at us all, her eyes holding the same strength they'd had during her final days. Wade had positioned spotlights to highlight the subtle color variations I'd labored over for weeks while she dozed in her hospice bed. The bidding will begin at $700,000, Wade announced. But first, we're honored to have Victor Stewart share his professional assessment. Victor stepped forward, wineglass in hand. In my 30 years of criticism, I've rarely encountered work of such raw emotional authenticity. The artist's connection to the subject is extraordinary. Now? Leonard whispered behind me, squeezing my shoulder. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Would you like to know why that connection feels so authentic, Victor? The room went silent. Wade's smile faltered for just a moment. And you are? Victor asked. I reached for my mask, but Wade cut in quickly. Just an enthusiastic collector. Now about the bidding. No, I said, my voice stronger. I'm the artist, the real artist. I pulled off my mask. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Isabella! Wade laughed nervously. You're drunk. Security! Play it, I called to Leonard. The gallery's screens flickered to life, showing time-lapsed videos of me painting each piece, photos of my studio, social media posts dated months before Wade claimed to create them. That's my mother, I said, pointing to the portrait. Catherine Morris. She sat for me every day during her last month of chemotherapy. I have the hospice records to prove it. Wade's face had gone pale. She's lying. She's jealous because... Because what? Harmony stepped forward, pulling out her phone. Because she's talented enough to create these herself? I have videos of her working on 3 different pieces you claimed as yours. Emma! Wade appealed desperately. You know my work. Tell them. But Emma was already walking toward the portrait, her mask removed. I taught Isabella for 5 years. I watched her develop this style, this technique. She touched the canvas gently. I should have known. No one else could capture Catherine's spirit like this. Victor turned to Wade, his expression thunderous. Is this true? I can explain everything. Wade started backing away. There's a perfectly reasonable... Yes. Leonard stepped forward. There is. It's called theft, and I have the evidence right here. He patted his laptop bag. Every email, every plan, every fake documentation. The room erupted in chaos. Buyers demanded refunds. Phones came out. Victor was already calling his publisher. And there, in the middle of it all, Wade stared at me with naked hatred. You're going to regret this, he hissed. I looked up at my mother's portrait, at her knowing smile. No, I said. I'm really not. You have no idea what you've done, Wade snarled, grabbing my arm as chaos swirled around us. These people trusted me. I built relationships. You built lies, I yanked free. On my work, my pain, my mother's memory. Security was moving through the crowd now, their radios crackling. Leonard was showing them something on his phone, pointing at Wade. Ms. Morris! Victor appeared at my side. I owe you a profound apology. But right now, these people need answers. Would you be willing to speak? I looked around the gallery, at my life's work on display, at the faces behind half-removed masks, at Emma's encouraging nod. Yes, I said, taking the microphone Victor offered. I'll tell you everything. The room fell silent as I walked to stand beside my mother's portrait. My hands were steady now, anger burning away the last traces of fear. Every piece in this room has a story, I began. This one? I painted it the week my mother started hospice care. She insisted on sitting up for hours, even when the pain was unbearable, because she wanted to leave me something real. Phones recorded as I moved to the next piece. This abstract? Created the night she died. I couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, so I painted until morning. Wade found it in my private studio and sold it to Harmony for $15,000. That's a lie, Wade shouted, but security was already flanking him. The evidence is all here, Leonard announced, connecting his laptop to the gallery's display system. Emails filled the screens, Wade's correspondence with buyers, his plans for the private auction, his instructions to forge documentation. Oh, God, someone in the crowd gasped. I paid $30,000 for... Every sale will be investigated, Victor declared. Every piece authenticated properly. Ms. Morris, would you be willing to verify your work? I can do better than that. I pulled out my mother's brushes. I can show you how I created them. A space cleared around an empty easel. My hands moved automatically, mixing colors I'd used 1,000 times. The brush strokes were as familiar as breathing. The technique he claimed as his signature? I demonstrated the layering method I'd developed. I learned this sitting at my mother's hospital bed, watching how the sunset created layers of color through the window. Emma stepped forward, her voice thick with emotion. I remember you showing me this technique 3 years ago. I should have spoken up sooner. Security was leading Wade toward the exit now. He was still shouting, but his voice was drowned out by the clicks of cameras and the buzz of phones as the story spread across social media. Isabella, Harmony called out. The collectors want to know. Will you sell your work under your own name? I looked at my mother's portrait, at her proud smile, then at the half-finished piece on the easel, created in front of dozens of witnesses. Yes, I said, but not tonight. These pieces need to be returned to their rightful home first. And where is that? Victor asked. I touched my mother's brushes, feeling their worn handles. With the truth, where they belong. The gallery erupted in applause. Emma hugged me, whispering apologies. Harmony was already talking about a proper exhibition. Leonard showed me messages from galleries across the city, demanding interviews. But all I could see was my mother's face in the portrait, her eyes saying what she'd told me so many times. The truth always finds its way to the light, sweetheart. Always. The morning sun streamed through my studio windows as I carefully hung my mother's portrait in its rightful place. The headlines were still fresh. Art World fraudster faces charges, rising artist reclaims stolen works, gallery scene shaken by forgery scandal. Perfect spot, Alexis said, helping me adjust the frame. She'd love seeing it here. The studio door chimed. Emma walked in, carrying a fresh canvas. Ready for your first official class? Almost. I gathered my mother's brushes, laying them out for today's students. After everything happened, Emma had suggested I teach at her art school. Sharing truth through art, she'd said, just like your mother taught you. Isabella? Harmony appeared in the doorway. The gallery owners hear about your exhibition. Send him in. But it wasn't just the gallery owner who entered. Victor came too, along with several familiar faces from the masked viewing. Collectors who'd bought my stolen work. We've been talking, Victor said, about making this right. One of the collectors stepped forward. An elderly woman who'd purchased 3 of my pieces through Wade. We don't want refunds. We want to commission new works, from the real artist this time. At proper market value, another added. No more stolen prices. My phone buzzed. Leonard sending updates about Wade's case. The evidence was overwhelming, the charges mounting. But that wasn't what mattered anymore. I'd be honored, I said. But first, I have something to show you. I led them to my workspace, where a new painting stood covered. With trembling hands, I pulled away the cloth. Gasps filled the room. On the canvas, my mother's portrait technique merged with my own style, creating something entirely new. Something true. This is what I want to teach, I said, touching the still wet paint. Not just technique, but honesty. The courage to put your real self on canvas. When can you start? Emma asked. She already has, Alexis said, pointing to the students gathering outside the studio, portfolios in hand. The gallery owner smiled. I think your mother would be proud. I know she would be, I said, picking up her favorite brush, because she taught me the most important lesson. Art isn't about fame or money. It's about leaving your mark honestly. The studio filled with morning light, making the wet paint gleam like tears, or perhaps like hope. Outside, I could hear my students chatting excitedly, ready to learn, to create, to tell their own truths. Time to open up, Harmony said, heading for the door. I looked around my studio, at my mother's portrait watching over us, at Emma preparing the easels, at Alexis arranging fresh canvases, at all the blank spaces waiting to be filled with honest work. Yes, I said, opening the door to let my students in. Time to begin again. They filed in, eyes wide at the artwork surrounding them, at the portrait of my mother smiling down at us all. I picked up a clean brush, feeling its perfect weight in my hand. Welcome, I said, dipping the brush in paint. Let me show you how to tell your story. And as morning light filled the studio with possibility, I began to teach them everything my mother had taught me about truth, art, and the courage to create without fear.